Tesla investors see the world differently than others. While Tesla bulls believe they're witnessing history in the making and Tesla's accomplishing one innovation after another, Tesla bears don't believe a single thing Elon Musk says. In the run-up of Tesla stock last week, Tesla's short sellers have lost more than $4 billion. Today, we'll listen to an interview of Marc Andreessen as he explains what makes Elon Musk a once-in-a-generation leader. We'll also watch a video of John Murphy, Bank of America analyst, who says he's never seen a company like Tesla and why autonomy is more important than people are realizing. I've got Hans Nelson joining us. He's got his own YouTube channel called Hans C. Nelson. Welcome, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
So we have this great video of Marc Andreessen. He's great. Any just quick comments of who he is and why we like him so much?
So today he is, one of the co-founders of the venture capital firm A16Z, but he actually, is a significant person in Silicon Valley because he was one of the founding members of Netscape and is really the person primarily responsible for the technology that Netscape developed that brought the internet to everyday people on an open platform. So his primary competition at the time was AOL, and he pretty much handily did away with that competition. And then subsequently, of course, Microsoft really copied Netscape and rolled it into Internet Explorer. And that was pretty much the death of Netscape's business model. But his developments at that company really is the foundation on which the entire modern internet is built. And so he's a very important person in the history of technology, very insightful, and then has also, invested in and worked with many of the most important and influential founders over the entire, last couple of decades since the internet really came to prominence.
Okay, let's show you this first. So Tesla short sellers, if you bet against Elon, this is what happens. We're going to go ahead and play that video with Marc Andreessen, but I just want to show this right off the bat. Tesla short sellers lost more than $4 billion right after the 2 days. Oops, right here, the 2 days following the third quarter earnings last week. This was data reported from S3 Partners. They just shocked everybody. They came out. No one could guess what they were going to share across the board. Everything was great. And this isn't the first time that short sellers paid dearly for betting against Elon Musk. In the following week following Tesla's fiscal first quarter, short sellers lost more than $5 billion as well at that time. So let's get started with Marc Andreessen. He was being interviewed by Impact Theory. Elon himself forwarded this part of the interview. It's about a 7-minute long clip, but let's listen to it.
Is it that Elon does either in worldview or action that makes him so effective?
Yeah, this is, in my mind, this is the single biggest question. I'm really glad you asked it because it's the single biggest question in the world right now. Or it's the single biggest question in my world, right? Which is like, okay, how is it that he does what he does? And I would say, I don't, there are people who have worked with him for a lot longer who probably understand this better, but I've had, an up close kind of look at it for the last several years now and have come to really, I think, really respect it and I think understand at least parts of it. Look, it's a lot of it, there was that famous text exchange, and actually he's a friend of mine, a wonderful guy, Parag, who was running Twitter at the time when Elon first kind of tangled with it. Parag's a wonderful guy, and he had literally just become CEO like a month earlier or something, and so he was just putting his plans in place when kind of everything, the hurricane hit. But, there was an exchange where Parag is talking about whatever, and it's the famous text exchange where Elon's like, all right, fuck it, I'm not having this conversation anymore. And then he said, what have you gotten done this week? Right. And what I realized when I read that was like that is the Elon method. Like the Elon method boiled all the way down is what have you gotten done this week? Right. And that's very important because at anybody who has ever been at a large company trying to do anything big, the big things happen over the course of years, decades, years, months. Things don't happen in weeks. Companies have 5-year plans. Right. They have cars take 7 years to design. Right. Rockets take a decade. Fighter jets take 25 years. Big software systems take 5-10 years. Any large scale effort anywhere in the economy, we've just all gotten used to this idea that things just take years and years and years. And then you've got processes and procedures and plans and this, documentation and, rules and structure and strategies and frameworks and PowerPoint presentations coming out of your ears. Amazon's big breakthrough was to go from Amazon's big breakthrough is just go from having PowerPoint presentations to having like 15-page written documents that everybody reads at the start of a meeting, which actually is an improvement off of a PowerPoint presentation. But like, there was that. Elon's like, no, I'm not doing any of that. Like, I'm not doing any of that. We're not doing any of that. Basically, we're going to like staff these companies almost entirely with engineers. I myself, Elon, am an engineer. I am going to understand every aspect of every technical system that we're working on. I am going to be able to be in all the meetings on everything from rocket design to database design at Twitter and everything else. I'm going to only talk to the engineers if I can, possibly avoid it. I'm never going to talk to anybody who's not an engineer. I'm going to talk to the person who's directly relevant to the project. I'm not going through layers. I'm going all the way down to the company to just talk to the person who's in charge of this thing. And then basically what he does is he goes to each of his companies each week. He identifies whatever is the bottleneck at that company this week, and then he works with the engineers and he fixes it that week. So what happens is his companies move so much faster than everybody else's. Like, it's just like it's like tortoise and rabbit. Like they just move so much faster. They're so much leaner. They don't have all these layers. They don't have all these like systems and controls and processes and all this stuff. But what they have is like many of the best engineers in the world who just absolutely love working with the CEO, who understands the substance of what the product is, and then is willing to actually work with them hands on. I mean, I've been in meetings with him at X where he's in there with like 24-year-old engineers, and they're just like they'll just like walk through fire for him. Right, because he's like their idol, and he's able to have a pure conversation with them, and he cares about the work that they're doing. And if they succeed at it, he is going to love them for it. And if they fail at it, he's going to be very disappointed in them. And it's just a completely different relationship than the CEO of one of these big tech companies has. It's just completely different. He does a. I went to see him one night when he took over X, and I was sitting in the conference room. So it's like 10 o'clock. It's a classic illustration. So it's 10 o'clock at night. And he's like, yeah, meet me at Twitter at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, fine. So I drive up and I go in and I go to the conference room, and it's Elon on his iPhone doing email, and there's a dog on the floor. And I'm like, oh, and I in retrospect, I was just like, oh, is that your dog? And he looks at me completely deadpan. He's like, I've never seen that dog before in my life. I'm like, what is it? Just like the company dog? He bursts out laughing because of course it's his dog. And then he's like, all right, I want to talk, but he's like, I need 15 minutes, and he's like, by the way, you can sit and hang out if you want. I just have to take a call. And he gets on Zoom, and he's on Zoom with rocket engineers for the Falcon rocket, the next generation rocket in Texas. And it's whatever, I don't know, 12 o'clock their time, midnight their time. And it's just him on his iPhone on a Zoom call, designing the next rocket. Which is like probably the rocket that we just saw work, right? And he's like fully conversant completely conversant in that. And he and the engineers fix whatever the problem is that week with the rocket. And he's like, all right, now we're going to go fix the database, here at Twitter. And so it's just like rinse and repeat, do that every single week. I once offered him a place where I thought he might want to take, I was like, I know you're under a lot of pressure. Go to this place for a week if you want. Cause he famously doesn't own any houses. He sold all his houses. He doesn't own any houses. So he stays at friends' houses. So I was like, you can go use my house for a week. And if you need a vacation, you go use my house for a week. I got back 5 minutes later, one line, I don't take vacations. It's like, I'm gonna frame and bronze that email, right? And so this is what he does. And he just does this at like an incredible high rate of speed. He doesn't tolerate anything that stands in the way of it. This, by the way, this is the same thing that drives everybody crazy, right? And so this was the whole thing on the, this is his whole thing. He's in this, big fight with regulators on like Starship launches, which is like, a normal rocket company would take whatever, a decade or 20 years to design a new rocket. He's going to put out the prototype as fast as he can. He's going to launch it and see what happens. It's gonna explode in midair. There's my 9-year-old and I love watching the SpaceX rocket explosion compilation videos on YouTube. They're hysterical because they just show these larger and larger and larger rockets launching and exploding in midair. Oof. And his competitors, all the way SpaceX was on its way up, his competitors were like, he's crazy. He can't make rockets work. See, they're all exploding. And what he was doing was he was iterating on the rocket design so much faster than they were. And so he would run through 5 rocket generations, of which 4 would fail, but he would learn so much that the 5th one would work, and he would go through the 5 generations faster than his rocket competitors could do 1 generation. And he's just like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, of course some rockets are going to explode. Nobody's going to get hurt. It's totally fine. But a big company can't tolerate that because it's like headline news and everybody's going to get mad. Yeah. And so anyway, it's just like this completely, it's a base level reality. He calls it first principles. You get straight to base level reality. You get straight to substance. You spend no time on anything other than substance. And so anyway, like if you know, like me, if you're an engineer and you kind of see this, you know, I'm an engineer by training. And so if you kind of see this, you're like, oh my God, this is like obviously the way that everything should be run. But if you see it from the outside, it just looks so wild compared to all of these other large systems and rules that we've all gotten used to. And therein lies the conflict.
That is awesome. He is just amazing. This is a personal explanation from one of the most important tech CEOs in the world. And he's talking about how Elon does things so differently. Speed is basically what I heard. What do you think, Hans?
Yeah, his description there at the very end of, you know, if you're an engineer and you see this is like, obviously this is how things should be run. And this is the exact reason that I came to be so interested in Elon and Elon's companies, is because as someone who has a mechanical engineering degree and who has done a little bit of engineering in industry and has experienced big bureaucratic companies and the nonsense that exists inside of them, I'm like, well, you know, I don't want to work in an environment like that at all, ever, if at all possible. And then I see this guy over here who is running a company like an engineer who has good business sense can. And that is so compelling. And, you know, there's so many different little individual aspects that Mark touched on there that are all very important. The drive to actually accomplish, like, whatever the bottleneck is, what are the most important, most difficult problems to solve. Like, think about one of the ways that Elon has described this is that, you know, the CEO's job is to solve the problems that were too hard for everyone else to solve. That you've got an entire company that is basically a problem solving filter, and all of the easy problems everyone else solves. The only problems that rise all the way to the level of the CEO are the hardest problems to solve. And so he has embraced that reality and gotten to work on every single week identifying what the biggest, hardest problems are to solve, and working and not solving them, you know, from an ivory tower, but getting on the ground, standing shoulder to shoulder with the people who are responsible for solving that problem and helping solve that problem alongside them, and removing whatever gets in the way of their ability to solve that problem. And that requires that, you know, he eliminates all the layers in between him and them. It requires that he eliminates all the bureaucracy. And, you know, there's so many things that just don't exist inside of a Tesla, you know, really most of Elon's companies. Like, the role of HR in his companies is vastly diminished compared to other companies. The no meetings, like they're all these things that really, they come into existence as a company has problems, either problems trying to scale, or they got sued, or they made a mistake with a customer, and so now they have to have this procedure that gets put in place, and all this stuff just builds up over time. And the bigger a company gets, usually the bigger all of that stuff gets. And Elon just says, no, like, we're not allowing that stuff to build up. We're going to cut through it all the time and get back to the people on the ground being empowered with everything that they need to solve the problem in front of them to the best of their abilities. And it's just an incredible thing to watch in comparison to all of, like, there are no other companies in all of history that are the size that Tesla is today, because Tesla is the biggest of all of Elon's companies, that operate with that little bureaucracy and that little red tape. It's never been done before, and that's why Tesla's been able to accomplish what Tesla has been able to accomplish. And I always go back to the thing that Andrej Karpathy said about this, that Elon is an incredibly effective warrior in the fight against organizational entropy. And what Mark described was that exact statement. All the ways that Elon cuts through red tape and process and things that slow a company down, and is able to operate 100,000 plus employee company like it's a startup, and is continuing to grow.
What it just shocks me still that people will willingly try to bet against Elon, the short sellers, for example. Like, of all the companies, is this the one you really want to test because it's not just one company. It's not just Tesla. He did it again with SpaceX. He did it again with XAI. He's doing it again with XAI. He's doing it again with Neuralink. So it's pretty common theme now that these companies are achieving the impossible and they're moving forward, and maybe not in a time frame. And so you're betting on the time frame, but what a bet that you're trying to do here.
Yeah, what's more important, the fact that the time frame was late, or the fact that something that has never been done before was accomplished? I think it's the latter.
Elon's wealth soared back $34 billion because of the week last week. Its now net worth is $270 billion. Third largest single day gain. I had it at the second largest single day gain in the history of Tesla, and in the last decade, it was the largest single day gain. So he added $33 billion. He's extending the world's richest man lead again. So, he's back up again there. This is just the beginning. And he has said this, right? He said this at the actual earnings call. He said, my prediction is Tesla will become the most valuable company in the world, and probably by a long shot. Quick thoughts on why you think that is going to happen?
Well, they're definitely making a lot of investments right now into artificial intelligence, and a lot of problems in the economy really are solvable with digital intelligence. And so they're, the bet is that AI will be able to create real value in the real world through embodied products like the robotaxis, all of Tesla's fleet, which can be robotaxis, but as well as the Cybercab specifically, and then the Optimus bot in between those two physical platforms. And Elon is specifically thinking about them as platforms, just like the iPhone was a platform for all of Web 2.0. The reason, and Apple was one of those companies that enjoyed a long stint of time where they were the largest company in the world. And why? Because they were the world's premier platform for Web 2.0. So if Tesla can become the world's premier platform for a vertically integrated embodied AI ecosystem, then I think he's probably right to think that it's not only possible, but likely that Tesla will become the most valuable company in the world in this next evolution of what technology is, which is applying artificial intelligence to real world problems.
Yeah, which is unlimited. I mean, the largest TAMs in the world, right? Energy, bots, robotaxi, and then now
human labor,
AI in general. So finally, we're seeing institutional investors. We've been reporting that quite regularly these days. This is coming fast and furious here. Bank of America, John Murphy had a good one. I want to play this video because he explains it well. He not only says that autonomy is far more important than people are realizing. That's great. Tesla's entering the next growth wave. But he also says that, he's asked the question, have you ever seen a company like Tesla before? He says, I've been doing this for over 25 years. Never. And Elon is definitely different. And so, people are starting to wake up to this.
Elon and Tesla. You've covered Tesla for a while. And what caught me, amongst many things in your notes, we'll pick apart your analysis and your coverage to the company. Tesla is about to enter its second wave of growth. What does that look like to you?
So, I think, it's the new core to future company. And it sounds kind of weird because we in our comments, we have this framework of core to future and basically leveraging the ICE business and the truck business to fund the future, which is AV and EVs. Tesla is obviously at that next level with their EVs and their AVs to some degree. And what you're seeing is this real wave of core being sort of new products that are coming next year, as well as some beyond that are funding the future. And what we just saw was an improvement in gross margin that's helping fund this future. So I think what we're seeing is the evidence of funding of that future. And the future is Cybercab, next gen models, potentially full self-driving sooner than people are thinking, as well as potentially the robotics, that they've shown at the robotaxi day, as well as energy storage. So you think about that, there's kind of a soup of things there. And when you think about a stock like this, there's this huge opportunity curve out there, or frontier of all these things that can go right potentially for the company. And then you have this very strong core that's developing right now that's funding that. So the wave is going to look like many different things, and may take many different shapes as we progress through the next few years.
You've been doing this for a hot minute. Have you ever seen a company like Tesla before?
I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've never seen a company like this before. No, it's pretty impressive. And I think when you look at what this, what's going on at Tesla, you have, I mean, it's not Tesla, but you have Elon with SpaceX and everything that's going on at Tesla and XAI. And I think we have a real innovator, whether you like him or not, that is really kind of shocking the world and bringing a lot to the table. And, we've had a lucky run here with Tesla with almost free capital for the better part of a decade. So he's been given tens of billions of dollars. But the reality is he's done something really amazing with it and is really pushing the envelope, which I think is going to be great for humanity over time. Hopefully Americans.
As someone that has covered this company literally, I guess, Dave, from ground, what is it about Elon? How is he able to surprise Wall Street and deliver, I would say, a very surprising third quarter, but I would say a surprising year, and then come out with things that most people thought wouldn't even exist?
Well, I think the answer no doesn't exist for Elon. If it's possible at all, he pushes forward. And I think there's a very important thing that the other companies face, and it's a constraint on capital. And that really is important. I mean, when you're focused on profits and returns in the short run, you can often lose focus on sort of the 1 to 20 year vision and what you really need to do to drive those earnings going forward and new products going forward. So I think with the luxury of his celebrity to some degree, as well as his intelligence as far as getting things done and dreaming about them, it really provides an opportunity that other companies don't have. The answer no doesn't exist, and the idea that you have to hit certain profit return hurdles in the short run, they're unconstrained from in a significant way. Which,
yeah, I like that. Very good answer, isn't it? Return on invested capital is one of the best things that Elon's ever done. No one's ever done that before. You give him money, and he looks at the future. Doesn't care about the short term. Yeah.
Yeah, I was laughing a little bit at the question. How does he surprise Wall Street? Like Wall Street are these, magical, people with this crystal ball that can see the future and predict things so well. Yeah, that's definitely not my opinion of or experience of Wall Street in general. But that his answer was very, very well put, and obviously with the context that we have from Marc Andreessen earlier, that Mark's answer was even better, but his answer was good. And he is looking at the company and actually taking Elon and what Elon has said. He's analyzing what Elon has said the future businesses are, and he's actually thinking through, okay, what if these things work? And he talked about all of them, not just whether FSD was going to work, but even the robot through Optimus over time. And so, that's not something that you usually see from a Wall Street type. They'll just say, well, I can't look past the 1 year time frame. I want to know what's going to happen next quarter. And so the only thing that they're talking about is either auto gross margins or, growth in deliveries. And so he's, taking some of his own advice there. He's saying one of the things that Elon does is he's not so focused on that short term, next quarter to quarter thinking. He's focused on the long term. And this analyst is also a little bit more focused on the long term. And that not only allows him, but then forces him to really take into consideration, okay, is Elon going to do these things that he said he's going to do, given his track record of doing things that he said he was going to do, regardless of how long it took him to do those things. All the major goals he set for himself so far, he's accomplished, except for FSD, and we're continuing to make progress. So,
yeah. And it's not just Elon, of course, it's the entire team. But as we explained in the beginning here, Elon knows how to bring the team together, focus them in the right place, and they're accomplishing things. And so that's the thing, right? If you believe in Elon or you don't, it almost doesn't matter. What matters is, do you believe in the companies that he's built? Are they able to accomplish these things? And they have been. I mean,
there's a very real sense in which all of his companies are literally just an extension of his own brain. And that is one of the one of the things that I was thinking about when Marc Andreessen was talking was the number of employees that Elon has had direct hands-on interactions with, where they are working side by side. In most companies, you could probably count on one hand a very active company, at large companies. We're not talking about startups, where the CEO probably works primarily with 10 people, maybe 20, 30 people. Like, people say, oh, my Jensen has so many direct reports. It's like almost 100 direct reports to Jensen. And he's, a very effective person. And not that Elon has more than 100 direct reports. I don't know what how do you measure direct reports with someone who will literally go down to the shop floor and work shoulder to shoulder with someone, literally every day almost in one of his companies. So I would bet you that he has had, those working interactions with employees 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, maybe 10,000 times more than any other living CEO today. And so he has that literal mental model of how the entire company works that is multiple layers deeper than any other CEO. And he understands the workflows in the company, the people problems in the company, the technical challenges in the company. Like he just has a better understanding of what his companies are doing than anyone else, and is of course such an intelligent person and able to then figure out, okay, how do we solve these problems? So the combination of those two things is, absolutely stunning. And that's why Tesla is what it is.
Exactly. Well said. Thank you so much, Hans. Follow him on his YouTube channel and his X account, Hans C. Nelson. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.